Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me today. I will talk to you, as I mentioned to you in the last video, about sequencing the videos with the senses that I spoke to you about on the last one. So today I thought it would be great to talk about one of the senses that we consider in Buddhism, consciousness, which is one that I wanted to talk to you about, which is the ear, the sense of hearing. And as I mentioned to you before, this is something that we focus on our practice as we, for example, when we chant, we do our mantra. We are definitely in tune with not only what we're speaking, what we're doing, using with our words, our vocals, but as we start to listen to the consistency of the mantra, not only hearing it yourself while you're chanting, but hearing it from others, and it creates obviously an effect as we do it within yoga. Um, there's like I mentioned to you in the last video, um, all the practices that are involved in order to become uh, go into samadhi, which is nirvana. In that case, they go through all these particular forms in order to come in stillness. And within that practice, obviously, there is a um, use of the sense, the hearing sense, but it's more internal and quiet, other than in Buddhism, where there's the mantra that we're chanting, and it compensates a lot of the senses, like I said, not only verbalizing, but listening to it. And in our case, we'll talk about it later on, we're actually viewing the mandala. So the meaning, the definition of sound, it depends obviously who, you know, is defining it. I'm going to read you something specific here when it comes to, I guess, how the definition of sound in physics is described. So, sound is a vibration that propagates as an acoustic wave through a transmission medium, such as gas, liquid, or solid. In human physiology, and psychology, sound is the reception of such waves and their perception by the brain. Okay. So, how important it is for us, especially knowing through you're going to probably listen to my cat now. She was earlier on me purring, so that's a relaxing sound. But going back to what I was saying, our bodies, as many of you probably are familiar with, is made substantially of water, and it's been considered approximately 70% of water. So one person that I listened to years ago that I was introduced by was Dr. Emoto, and he talks about how sound feelings, which I think eventually they correlate um, because they're emanating a wave, uh, affects our matter, affects matter. And in this case, he did an experiment of freezing molecules of water. But before he did that, he made sure that the intention or the sound was, either positive, which he, took samples of those, or negatives, and he took samples of those. Long story short, when he froze these molecules, depending on what was intended, what was said, the molecule itself took a certain form. Like, for example, love, it took a beautiful form of, you know, it was like a snowflake, and it was beautiful shape, geometric shape. Now, when he would say an intention, a negative intention, there was a disharmony in the form. So, with that said, imagine how important it is for us to be attentive of what we hear. And that goes to the words that are said or received and how it's received. Music, huge thing about music. Sounds that are emanated from instruments and voices. The tuning of the instruments is very important too, because there's been a discrepancy when it comes to how the instrument and what frequency should they be tuned, like the 432, which, as far as I understand, these 432 hertz was the original tuning sound frequency, and then eventually it was changed to 440. So that is definitely another thing to look into. But what I guess what I'm trying to say is that it is, as you can see, it is so important for us to be responsible to what comes in, because as these sounds come in, depending on your beliefs, your understanding, your education and culture, whatever, you will take this information and then as well put it out. So, if you're listening to, for example, a beautiful piece of music, let's say like the Moonlight Sonata, which is one of my favorite classical, um, you feel that sound. And I personally, obviously, if it's tuned properly and depending who's interpreting it, I feel it in my heart. There's a resonance here. And as soon as it goes here, then that's just for me a clear understanding that it's coming from a good place. So, as well as a negative song. And don't get me going with all the commercial songs that are out there, and the lyrics are just disturbing, as well as the music. I mean, you can feel it. I mean, at one point, obviously, when I was young, I was pretty ignorant to that, and without even noticing, I love the rhythm, I like the music, and then eventually, I noticed that the words were definitely not conducive to something, positive. So, with that said, like heavy, like the heavy metal. I can't. I like hard rock, don't get me wrong, some of the hard rock stuff and soft rock, but there's some heavy metal that's pretty disturbing. So imagine if you put if you Dr. Emoto puts heavy metal music into water molecules, how would that look? So hence, how would that feel? How would that manifest inside of you? So there is this correlation, huge correlation when it comes to sound and how then you react to it. So it's not only hearing it, but it's how you and your body, your emotions, your physicality react to it. So, um, what are certain elements of sound that are positive? And if you wish to be in a place like on a positive, uh, you know, place in your heart, the things that I would recommend and that I do is obviously nature, especially for me in the morning when the birds are singing and the morning is just, you know, coming alive, the sound of the wind, the trees, the sound of the combination of the wind swaying the leaves and the birds uh, going to the ocean and hearing the water just, coming in and out, the instruments, somebody playing and transmitting that with their heart, with their emotion, somebody singing and you know putting uh, his or her voice out there with love, and the talk, how you talk to people. Is it with resentment? Is it with anger? Or was it love and compassion? And then you have obviously the stuff that we hear on a day-to-day basis, like cars and trains and I guess what we call noises. But it's important, again, I emphasize in how we can bring ourselves and navigate to being able to use the sense of hearing um, to the best of your ability. And again, the interesting part is that not only are we hearing sounds, but we make them. And as I mentioned to you, the singing, the words, playing the instrument as well, we make that. So there's an infinite correlation, because if we go deeper into it, there's many things that have been said, that we are sound, we are a specific frequency, where all these elements that we're made of came together and made you and made me. And and that obviously is a deeper conversation, but just to have that in mind is powerful. Now, like the positive effects, of course, of attuning to these frequencies are moving, like I said. An example that came up to me not too long ago was patients who have Alzheimer's. And interesting enough, when even though they may be in a different mental uh, experience, in a different place mentally, when they do hear certain music, especially music that comes from their era. I remember my dad, when some of the music that he loved came up, he would just lit up and started moving, and all of a sudden this part of his brain just lit up and recognized and started to remember things. So that was very powerful. On the negative spectrum of it, music can be, like I said before, disruptive, um, hitting things, creating, screaming. All these things can actually create dissonance, division, disturbance. So it does the opposite. The positive effects brings things together beautifully. You know, in the fabric of everything that we're made of, and people. And I've seen that in a beautiful way. And then obviously dissonance creates division. So music can be that way as well. Words can create division or unity. So this is something again that I can just keep going on. But I wanted to give you a glimpse of how important it is to pick and choose what you wish to listen to, because that in turn will affect your inner world and create either unity or disunity, dissonance. So I hope this little short video gave you some insights. I mean, you probably know a lot of this stuff, but for those who don't, I hope you enjoyed it. And one day I'll start working again on my music, my vocals, which for me, my voice has been, you know, uh, one of the senses that I enjoy besides listening, of course. So let's see what happens. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you wish to share anything when it comes to the sense of hearing, please feel free to share. Thank you very much. Have a great day, evening, or afternoon. Bye.